Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Friday, July 24th, 2015. I am Dave Biddle, and I am joined by the People's Champ, Matt Baxendell. Bax, I wanted to start off today's show talking about the third-string left guard situation at Ohio State, but I guess we'll talk about Braxton Miller moving to H and Nick Bosa committing to the Buckeyes. What a day it was yesterday for Ohio State, Bax.
Yeah, nothing major happened at all. I mean, it was your typical boring July Thursday, right? I mean, I was fully expecting whenever we talked earlier this week about doing this show that we'd be talking about Friday Night Lights, we'd be talking about who the Buckeyes are going to see committing, and all that's still a big deal that there's a bunch of kids coming in for FNL, but it kind of seems like it's on the back burner now. Not only did the Buckeyes land Nick Bosa, who's essentially Joey's clone, which is about the best compliment I can give him, but we also found out yesterday that Braxton Miller is officially going to take his athletic talents to skills position city and go out and play some H-back, wide receiver, and the part I'm most excited about is he's going to return kicks, because if Braxton Miller's returning kickoffs and punts, then it's going to be the most exciting thing we've seen in terms of the return game since the days of Ted Ginn Jr. So yeah, this is a huge deal. It's an exciting deal, and this is a Buckeyes team that just got so much better by making sure Braxton's on the field every play. And I'll tell you this to you, Dave, I'm not surprised this happened. I'm a little surprised with the way Braxton's really embracing it so full on, and that's a great thing for this team for a chance to repeat a national title.
Absolutely, and we'll see how it shakes down. If he's going to be the starting H, I imagine he's not switching positions to be a backup. He already could have been a backup quarterback if he wanted to be. Curtis Samuel's at that H position. They're going to move Jalen Marshall out wide is what I'm hearing. Now, I think Jalen Marshall's still going to get some snaps at H. I don't think he's just going to be a wide receiver. I'm sure they'll move guys around, just like I'm sure Curtis Samuel's going to play some running back. But I have to think Braxton's going to be in there a lot at the H, and that's just going to pose nightmares for opposing defensive coordinators. You already had a juggernaut offense, even without Braxton. We think about the offensive line, think about J.T. Barrett and Cardale Jones. You think about Ezekiel Elliott, arguably the best running back in the country. Michael Thomas out wide, Nick Van Ed at tight end, some other top receivers. Now you add Braxton Miller into that mix. It's really scary. It's a lot of fun. And then, now we're down to two as far as who's going to be the starting quarterback. It's been the biggest topic of conversation throughout the offseason. Now we know it's down to two. How do you think it's going to shake out between JT and Cardale, Bax?
Oh, this is a tough one. I'm on the record of believing that J.T. Barrett is the best quarterback option we have, because I think he's the perfect player for Urban Meyer's offense, because he's so effective at getting the ball into everyone's hands at any point in time in a way that they can catch it and run with it, but also because he's so good at the zone read. When you have options like this, man, you have to really think long and hard about making sure you can distribute it properly among all of them. But on the other hand, you had Cardale Jones, who, just because he's not as good at the zone read doesn't mean he can't hit the ball way downfield on those deep bombs. And another thing I think we really have to think about going for Cardale is I just talked about the read option. With Cardale, my complaint was we really never used it because he didn't run it very well. Well, if you have Braxton Miller in there at H and you're removing him around and everything, who says Miller's not going to take 5-10 direct snaps a game and just let his running ability go for it? That sort of mitigates a little bit of the concerns I have about the running game, I guess, being purely Ezekiel Elliott with Cardale Jones as the quarterback. My gut says that Urban is going to make this a wide-open competition, and I know who won this competition head-to-head last year. It's just so hard to really make a decision on this one because both are great options, and to be frank, I think Ohio State wins every game with either guy starting at this point. So I'm a Barrett guy, and that's where I'm going to go to. That's who I would choose if I was making the decision, but I'm not making the decision. It's Urban Meyer, and at this point, if anybody's questioning Urban Meyer, we need to just back off because the guy at this point has earned everybody's trust 1,000 times over with every decision he's made.
I think both guys are going to play at least early in the season. Now, maybe by the time we get, by the time we get to the meat of the schedule, or at least late in the season, I think he's going to maybe just pick one guy. I think for the Virginia Tech game, I think Cardale Jones is going to start that game. It sounds like I'm in the minority. I think most people I talk to say J.T. Barrett is going to be the starter. People like yourself, other colleagues Phil Steele has J.T. Barrett. So the more I get into this, I realize I'm in the minority here. But I'm going to pick Cardale to be the starter for the Virginia Tech game. But I think J.T. Barrett's going to play early in that game. He's not going to play if it's a blowout in the fourth quarter. Not that I think that game's going to be a blowout in the fourth quarter. I think J.T. Barrett's going to play early in that game, maybe by the third series or fourth series. And I know the old cliche, if you have two quarterbacks, you have none. I think this is the exception to that rule. I can't imagine either of those guys just wasting away on the bench. Yes, J.T. beat Cardale out last year, but lots happened since then. I mean, Cardale proved that he's a big-time player. J.T. proved that he's a big-time player as well. That's why it's a great problem to have. That's why I think both guys are going to play, and I think Urban Meyer can make this work. This is not Stanley Jackson and Joe Germain playing for John Cooper. You know, this is Cardale Jones and J.T. Barrett playing for Urban Meyer. It's completely different. I think he can make it work. What do you think, Bax?
Well, I hate the idea of a pure two-quarterback system. I agree with you early on in the season the guys are going to both play a lot, especially coming up after Virginia Tech. And you got the murderer's row of Hawaii and Northern Illinois and Western Michigan, the fighting PJ Flex coming to the shoe. But I think once you get into the actual meat of the Big Ten, you're going to have to pick a guy who's your first half guy, the guy that you go up 28-0 on the other team against with, and then you can bring in the other guy, and you're not going to slow the offense down, and the backup's going to come in and lead the team to 3 or 4 touchdowns in the second half. That's just kind of the way I think this is going to have to go for Urban, because you can't not pick a starting quarterback, and then when you get into a tough game, one of the guys is going to be looking over each other's shoulders. Then you're in the position of playing musical quarterbacks, and that's never a good thing. So I think you're right. Both of them are going to play a lot. I think, if anything, it's going to be very interesting to see if Urban Meyer doesn't look at it from the perspective of, I have J.T. Barrett for X amount of years more after this. Do they just let him go with it? Or do they recognize Cardale as saying he's going to be probably gone this year anyways to the NFL? The NFL scouts are drooling over his ability. And maybe Urban Meyer's in the same boat. You know, I've said in the past, Urban loves the big play. Urban, dreams of the big play. Urban probably went to sleep last night dreaming of Braxton Miller returning punts for touchdowns from his own 2-yard line. So, I mean, that's the kind of guy Urban is. He loves the big play. And maybe Cardale brings more opportunities for that big explosive play. But I think this is going to come down, honestly, to how they play in camp. Because if one of these guys has prepared himself so much better in the offseason than the other, we're not going to really know for sure. You know, we saw Cardale Jones do all kinds of stuff running around, being super visible with, the Cavs and going to the SDs and all this other stuff. We really haven't heard a lot from Barrett. So I think the real question is going to be, have both of them taken care of their business in the offseason? And if they both have, then this is a real serious question for us to have. If one of them hasn't, it's going to be very obvious very quickly in camp, and that person is going to be the one who walks out of camp as the starter. I do think Barrett starts at the beginning of the year. I think the real question is whether or not they're going to do the full two-quarterback system going into the Big Ten play, or if it's going to be a very clear-cut starter-backup situation again. And, this is going to be, even with Braxton now sort of out of the quarterback equation, let's not forget, Braxton's still going to be involved in taking direct snaps. He'll probably run a few option plays himself. He's going to get the ball and come across. And you're insane you think Braxton's not going to throw a few passes this year, even with an arm that isn't perfect right now. Braxton Miller's going to have a couple. He takes the snap going across the formation and goes and just chucks it downfield because everybody's terrified of the idea of Braxton running. So it's so far from resolved that we can make our educated guesses all we want, but there's still 2 really, really good quarterbacks Ohio State has to pick between.
Braxton moving to H is just a win-win for everybody. It's a win for the Buckeyes, in my opinion, and it's a win for Braxton because he's going to be able to now further his football career. I think the ship had sailed on him being an NFL quarterback. The ship certainly has not sailed on him being an NFL running back or wide receiver or something of that nature, something like Denard Robinson. I hate to bring him up, but it reminds me a lot of that, where I think some people wondered, could he be a running back in the NFL? Yeah, he turned out to be a pretty good running back in the NFL. He's a 3rd-round draft pick by the Jacksonville Jaguars. We'll see. He's a little sturdier built than Braxton, but Braxton's bulked up a lot, and I think now we know why Braxton's bulked up a lot. He kind of knew in the back of his mind, maybe the front of his mind, that he was going to be taking more hits this year. He wanted to bulk up for that H-back role. It's very exciting. I think it's a win-win for everybody. And then switching gears to Nick Bosa, not a surprise at all. We were told, Bax, that he was going to pick the Buckeyes and he was going to get it over with before his senior season started. So it's not a surprise. It's just really fun. It's just really exciting. And Buckeyes now the number 1 class in the country for the 2016 class, according to the 24/7 Sports Composite. And they also have the number 1 class in the country for the 2017 class. So Urban Meyer's recruiting pretty good, Bax.
Yeah, that Meyer guy might know sort of what he's doing in recruiting, huh? Funny how that works out. I will say this, too, about Nick Bosa. You know, it's good. Everybody talks about him and is all excited because he's Joey's little brother. But make no mistake about it, this kid's rating isn't remotely, in my opinion, influenced by the fact that he is Joey's brother. Turn on the film, and he's an exceptionally good football player in his own right. He's a big-time prospect in his own right. He's the kind of player that any team in the country would have been falling over themselves to get to be part of their program, and he's landing with the Buckeyes. I'm a little curious about the timing, though, because I know Friday Night Lights is coming up here, and it's going to be interesting to see how this affects guys like Antoine Jackson. Is it going to continue to sort of push him towards the downhill momentum we're hearing in his recruitment? And let's not forget, the Buckeyes are the number one class right now. They could easily add another one or two kids this weekend to that 2016 class and sort of extend their lead. I mean, Luke Farrell is a low-hanging fruit as a kid to be on commitment watch right now. So Urban Meyer, when he came here, we knew he was going to be bringing in top 5 classes every single year because that's what he did at Florida. Right now, we're looking at the potential of him running off multiple number 1 classes, which would exceed even what he did end up doing at Florida. I mean, 2016 is going to be as good a recruiting haul as we can remember, and it's already being overshadowed by what 2017 is starting to look like. And this is like the video games before they were canceled and all of our Julys were ruined because we don't get the NCAA football game anymore. This is what we did whenever somebody would go in and play as OSU in that game, and they'd recruit every freaking 5-star kid in the country, and they'd win every football game 5 years in a row. Well, Urban Meyer is setting himself up for something like that in real life. It's hard to not compare it to a video game because of what he's doing here. And the Buckeyes right now are the overwhelming favorites to repeat as national champions. And then going into the seasons following this one, we've still got J.T. Barrett for a couple of years at quarterback. We've got all this young talent coming in. This is truly an incredible time to be a Buckeye. I don't know if there's ever been a better time to be a Buckeye, because if you look at it, you could say maybe the late 60s under Woody Hayes, or the 68 team started their run into the mid-70s through Archie Griffin. Maybe that was the best time. Or maybe the early 2000s under Tressel was the best time. I'm not sure, but I do know this. I don't believe Woody or Tress ever recruited at this kind of level, and both of them brought in some exceptional talent to Ohio State. What Ohio State's going to turn out in the NFL draft the next 5 years is going to be incredible, and I think it's going to match the results we've seen on the field last year, the previous years under Urban, and the years we're going to see going ahead. There's a lot of championships in this team's future.
Friday Night Lights is, of course, tonight from 6 to 10. It'll be at Ohio Stadium. Parking is free. Admission is free. It's a great event. Bring your family. It's a really cool, and it doesn't really get going until about 7 o'clock. Don't worry about getting there early. Don't worry about getting there right at 6 if you don't want to. Now, if you want to, have at it. Get there early and enjoy some pops in the parking lot if you want to. But if you're worried about the actual meat of Friday Night Lights, it gets going around 7, and the best part is from about 8 until 10. Bax, I will see you there tonight. Thank you for your time. I'm sure you're excited to cover some Friday Night Lights with me and the rest of our staff tonight.
I can't wait, and I'll second what you just said, Dave. It's a really fun event. It's a free event. There'll be a couple thousand people there. They were doing some tours last year of areas of the shoe you usually can't see. It's absolutely worth your time going out. The atmosphere is incredible. And like you said, Dave, the best part's the 8 to 10 part where the kids are competing one-on-one. And you can see them out there literally trying to make themselves in a position to get a scholarship offer from the Buckeyes. And it's not just the kids in this year's class, it's the younger kids. Last year was the first time a lot of us ever saw Benjamin Victor, and now he's the number 2 player in the class. Last year we saw Trevon Grimes. I remember seeing him 2 feet away, Alex and I talking to him. Alex Kleitman, of course, who congratulations to him as well on a very big week in his personal life. And I tell you what, Friday Night Lights is a fantastic event. There's a reason it's the unofficial end of the summer, the unofficial end of the part where we focus on recruiting, because after Friday Night Lights, we start looking forward to camp. And this is going to be really fun to see which recruits end up joining the fold and just the whole competition aspect of things before we really start talking about the Buckeyes. We start talking about football season starting. We're only a couple weeks away from camp. It's coming up, folks. Be hype.
I'm excited. He's the People's Champ, Matt Baxendell. I am Dave Biddle. Thank you to the listeners out there. I appreciate you guys tuning in. I hope you have a great day and a great weekend. Take it away, best damn band in the land.